Welcome to another episode of Metal, Meeples, and Beer. I am Rob himself, and in this video I'm going to be doing another Robb review. And today I've selected Masque of the Red Death from IDW Games, based on the works of Edgar Allan Poe. I've been able to get this game to the table a couple of times over the last few weeks and thought it'd be a great game to do a review for. But before I get to any of that, I'm definitely having a beer. Today I'll be drinking the Skull Wrapper IPA from Coronado Brewing in beautiful Coronado, California. And while I'm drinking that and while I'm recording this video, I'll be listening to the Solar Cremation, an album from the Hallowed Catharsis, a badass metal band from Vancouver BC. I've been able to see them a couple of times over the last few months, and yeah, they're really badass. Highly recommend them. If you have a chance to see these guys, do so. Okay, so while I get this game set up, sit back, relax, grab yourself a pint, join me at the table as we take a look at the Masque of the Red Death. Cheers! Okay, well, let's just jump right into it here. I have set up on my table Masque of the Red Death, and it is compacted quite a lot, much more than normal, just for the sake of the camera. Generally, a lot of these things like this card here, this deck of cards, the clock would not be just sitting here on these or on the board itself. We kind of have it nicely spread out, but for the sake of this video, I've got a few things in sight for us to take a look at. Okay, but how about I give you a little rundown on the backstory of this game. So it's based on the work of Edgar Allan Poe and of the same name, Masque of the Red Death. And in that story, it basically talks about the prince, this guy here, who's ruling his kingdom, and one day a plague hits called the Red Death, and this plague starts killing his people in droves by the thousands, and he thinks that the only way to really survive this plague is to take himself and 1,000 of his closest friends and followers into his castle, into his keep, close the doors, lock everyone else outside, and wait it out. That's his plan, and he does that. He takes 1,000 people into his castle, closes the doors, and lets the other people in the kingdom basically fend for themselves. So he waits it out inside his castle, drinking, partying, having a great time, while other people outside are dying in droves from this plague. So yeah, and in this particular night, they're having a masquerade ball, which is pretty cool. The art's really great on the characters. You can see their little masks that each character has. So yeah, it's based on that kind of story, and they're in the middle of one of their balls while they're waiting out the Red Death outside. But little do they know that the Red Death is coming for them, whether they like it or not. So each player, I should say, this game is designed for 4 to 7 players, and that's with good reason. The more players, the better in this game. I've played with 5 and 6, and they were both great, but 6 I thought was just that much more interesting, and 7 would really put it over the top, and I think that this game really shines with more players, the better. So that is, yeah, that's how many players we have, and each player starts the game by taking a character. Let's say this guy. That's who I'm going to be, and his name is Baron Gourmand. You take his player card like this, and you take the matching stand here, and this, for just to show you how this works, this would sit on the board and on the table in front of you, and this would sit like that, hiding your information from all the other players. Okay, so there's a lot of information you're going to want to keep just to yourself. Okay, so yeah, each player gets a standee, a board, and this, and on here it actually lays out the game from prior to midnight and after midnight, and that's what this whole game's about. There's a whole bunch of things happening before midnight, and then the Red Death shows up, and things go pretty haywire from that point. So how have I set this up? Basically, the Red Death is going to show up at midnight. And he's going to kill everybody inside 2 rooms. At midnight, and at 12:10, and at 12:20, 12:30, 12:40, 12:50. If you can survive every time he shows up, you will win the game. If you're the most popular person to survive. So this game comes down to popularity and survival. So if you survive the game but have less popularity points than another person that survives the game, they win. So it's not just about surviving. So you have to have both. But to show you how we set things up, there are, I believe, 7 rooms, and there's a card for each time slot for each room. Okay? So for instance, at 12 o'clock, there are 7 cards that say 12 o'clock on them. I've shuffled them up, and I've taken out 2 of them. So at 12 o'clock, he's going to kill everybody that's in these 2 rooms at 12 o'clock. He's going to go to one first, and then the next. Okay? And I've taken the other 5 cards that match these 2, and I put them into this deck here, which is the same for 12:10. He's going to kill in 2 rooms. I've taken the other 5 cards and put them in this deck, and so forth for all these time slots. So that we know that these cards here, these are the rooms that he's going to be killing in. So the rest of the rooms, or the rest of the time slots, are going to be in this deck. Okay? So what we need to do is find out information from this deck telling us the rooms that he's not going to be killing in at these various times. Right? So how do we get those cards? How do we get that information? Well, to start the game, it actually says the least popular person starts first. So let's say that's me here, my guy. You put your character onto the board in any room you want. Let's say I place him there, and you place your token on the first space of the popularity track. Second player would put their guy out and take the second spot, third spot, and fourth spot, respectively. And it's important to note that no 2 players can be on the same popularity as each other at any time. So if you were gaining popularity and you were in the last spot, you would actually leapfrog everybody up to the next open spot. So you'd go from 1 last in popularity to 5 first in popularity. So it can swing quite heavily out of nowhere. So that's generally how you set it up. And each player also gets a deck of action cards. 9 of them. They get those, and they also get a special personality trait. So this is just basically a special ability for each character. So for instance, here is one example. You could get dealt this personality. Gain 2 popularity. Keep this card in front of you. Until midnight, you treat all other nobles as nearby nobles. So nearby means adjacent. So if this is my character here, and I had that card, everyone would be considered adjacent to me. Not just this room and this room, but everybody on the board. Okay? So each player would get their own special ability like that, as well as a deck of 9 cards with different actions. So, simultaneously, or I should say first off, at the beginning, if you're in the same room as the prince, you're just simply going to gain a popularity. Okay? So if I was here, here's the prince standee. If I started the game in the same room as him, I'm just simply going to get a popularity and jump all the way up to number 5. Then, the nobles mingle is what it says here. And you resolve your action cards. So simultaneously, everyone is going to choose a card to do a certain action. And they're going to play it in front of them, face down, and simultaneously reveal them. Okay? So starting with the person with the least amount of popularity, I believe, you resolve your action cards and then go clockwise. And this one, with this logo, simply means I get to draw a card from the rumor deck, which is this one, which is all the time frames from these cards that we know he's not going to be killing in. So for instance, I would draw this card, Oh, and there's other things in here as well, not just the time frames, but kind of special cards like this. So this one says, immediately look at one red death card, which are these, for the time shown, then discard this card. So I can look at the 1230 card of one of the red death cards. Discard that card. And I can see this, that he is going to be in the blue room, which is this little whale tail, or whatever that is. He's going to kill everybody that's in that room at 12:30. So I know I cannot be in this room over here at 12:30. And then I have to put that card back, and I have to keep that information to myself. And I have to kind of remember that he is going to be at 12:30 in that blue room. So my standee cannot be there when he gets there. Okay? So you resolve these actions. There's a few other things you can do. For instance, this one is gain, or I should say lose a popularity and steal a card from somebody else. So people gain cards. Where's that card? So this one. When you played that one, you could get a time card like this, and you could keep it for yourself, knowing that he's not going to be killing in the pink room with the glasses logo at 12:50. So you'd keep this to yourself, right? But if somebody else had played this card after you, they could lose a popularity and steal that card from you. So now they get that information and you lose it. So you'd have to remember that he's going to be killing in this room at that time. And yeah, it gets pretty cutthroat. People will be stealing cards from you, like this one as well. Steal a card from another player. This one is look at 2 cards from another player. Not steal them, but look at them. And you can say a specific time. So you could say, I want to see a card for midnight, and I want to see a card for 12:10. And they have to show you if they have those, okay? This one is gain a popularity and look at a card. This one is gain 2 popularity and get somebody else to lose 2 popularity. This one is gain 3 popularity and get somebody else to gain 3 popularity. This one is just gain 3 popularity. And this one is gain 2 popularity and an extra movement. So that brings me back to this card. So after we've all played their action cards, goes to the noble's move. So everyone gets a free movement to an adjacent room. So if I'd played that card that gave me the extra movement, I would be able to move to here, and I'd be able to move to here if I wanted to. And then everybody can do this. Everyone moves around the board wherever they want to go. Okay? And the prince, I should say, will follow this track here. So at the beginning of the game, he would have started in this room with the book. Okay? So for the next room, he's going to be going to the one with the glasses. And at the beginning of every turn, you get a popularity if you're in that room. So a lot of people would have known that he was going to the room with the glasses and tried to get to that room, probably, to get some popularity. Okay? Then, after the prince moves, you advance the clock. And here's the clock. It's a pretty cool component to the game. Really like it. You move it up an hour. Now we're at 9. Go from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And you do the whole thing over again. You play a card that's going to do some sort of action for you, depending on what you need. So the main thing you really want to do is start looking through that deck. So using the discuss card is huge. You play a card, everyone simultaneously plays them, reveals them, and then in player order of the popularity track, you would fire those cards, reveal them, see what they do. This one, for instance, I grab another card, because if I played the discuss card again, and I would know that at 12:30 he will not be in the red room, right? And I'd keep that card to myself and not let anyone else know unless somebody were to peek at it or steal it from you. So as the game goes along, you're going to be gaining more and more popularity, right? And you're going to be moving around the room, doing different actions. And then, once the clock reaches midnight, that's when the Red Death is going to show up. So, what you're going to have deduced by that point on your player card here, this is the whole other part of the game. You see we have a 12, 1210, 1220, 1230, 1240, and 1250 slots. So through the game, as you gather more and more information, you're going to start planning out what your moves are going to be when midnight hits. So you might have gained a whole bunch of information about where he's going to be at certain times, so that you plan to have your character land on, say, the pink room. And I know that at, say, 12 o'clock, that he will not be in the red room. Okay? So I've planned it out that at 12 o'clock, I land in the red room. So I would have, at 12 o'clock, this movement would fire. And you would have one of these on each spot at 12 o'clock, saying where your guy is going to move over and over again. And these are either to the left or to the right, okay, depending on where they're pointed. So if you hadn't gathered enough information by the time 12 o'clock comes, you're basically going to have to guess and hope that you are right on where you're going to have your player moving. So if I had this card or this token here at 12 o'clock, my guy would move to here because of some cards that I drew tell me that I know that he won't be in this room at 12 o'clock. Everyone does their movement that they've lined out on their card, and then we flip the first card. So, well, on this one, if my player had been there and this card had flipped, 12 o'clock, Red Death is showing up, and he's killing everybody in that room, including me, because I just had my guy move there. But chances are I would have had enough information to have known that he was going to be coming there, so I would have maybe done this movement instead and had my guy go from here to here. Okay? So that Red Death kills everyone in the white room at 12 o'clock, and then he kills everybody in the pink room at 12 o'clock as well, which is this room here. So he'll move here and kill anybody that's in there. Nobody's in those two rooms, nobody dies, everyone's survived. Now we go to the next part. 12:10. My guy will be moving to here. Everyone else moves somewhere else, depending on what information they have or don't have. And then at 12:10, we find out that he's going to the white room. And he's killing everyone there. There's nobody there. His second move, or his second room, is the book room up here. So if there was somebody here, he moves here, they're gone. Out of the game. And this keeps firing along to 12:20, 12:30, 12:40, and 12:50 until everybody is either dead or alive, and whoever is the last person standing with the highest amount of popularity wins the game. Both times I've played this, I have not survived. So there's a lot of take that in this game, a lot of stealing cards to desperately try to get information that you've missed out on, and you're running out of time. And you really, really have to pay attention to everything, and people will steal cards from you. And you have to remember these things. You're not like writing them down. You don't have copies of them or anything like that. So you really have to learn information, plan these movements out before midnight as best you can, and hope that you have enough information to survive for when the Red Death shows up. So that's basically how the game works. So yeah, it's a bit to take in, but it really is quite simple that he's killing at two rooms every 10 minutes after midnight, and you have to collect as much information from these cards as possible to know where he won't be, right? And hopefully you survive, and hopefully you've used enough of your action cards to gain some popularity to be the most popular person to survive and win the game. So yeah, there's not much more to say other than that. So I'll get this game cleaned up, I'll have a drink of my beer, and I will see you guys shortly. Cheers. Well, there you have it, folks. That was Masque of the Red Death from IDW Games, based on the works from Edgar Allan Poe. My final thoughts on the game are that I really, really, really enjoyed this one. It felt so real and so terrifying at times. You actually felt, while you're playing this game, the urgency that came with the Red Death showing up at the door, and you're hoping that you're not in the right, or the wrong room, I should say, when he gets there. It's really creepy. There's a creepy aspect to it where you feel like he's right behind you while you're trying to figure this puzzle out on where he's going to be and where he's not going to be, so that you can manipulate yourself around the board to make sure you're not there when he comes knocking, because if he does, you're dead. And it's really, really strange how real it feels, especially when you haven't quite got enough information to go on for a certain time period. Say at 12:30, you might not have got all the information you needed in the previous part of the game with all your actions, so you might have to guess at that point as to where he's going to be and where he's not going to be. And when you change your movement from one way to the other, hoping that it's going to work out. And in both of my experiences, I've had those scenarios show up both times where I had 50-50 shot and I guessed wrong both times, and he came knocking and I did not survive. It's a great game. Even in the end, when you don't survive, it's a lot of fun. I would like to play this again soon. I'm really anxious to play it again with 7 players because I've done 5 and 6, and 6 was even better than 5, and I really think that 7 would bring just that much more to the game. I can't say enough good things about it. There's not many games out there that are designed really well for between 4 and 7 players. So this one was a home run for me. It's great to know that I have this on the shelf for when I have, that extra couple people show up to a game night and you're looking for a great game to play. This is one of those games where you can have, not just a party game to play. This is, it has kind of aspects of that, but it's got a lot more to it. It's very sleuthy, detective style kind of work you have to do. There's a lot of interaction with your other players, trying to get other information out of them. And yeah, just this constant horror of this being hanging out behind you, waiting to see what move you're going to make and whether or not you survive. It's really fun. It's really great. The theme is awesome. The components are great. The standees are nice. The artwork is really, really nice. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And I hope you go out and play it. So again, this has been Metal, Meeples, and Beer. I am Rob himself. I've been drinking the Skull Wrapper IPA from Coronado Brewing in beautiful Coronado, California. I've been listening to, while I filmed this video, the Hallowed Catharsis, the album called Solar Cremation. In particular, they're a badass metal band from Vancouver BC. Check them out. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.